Hello, everyone. Welcome back once again. I am Nicodemus Kane. Today is June the 20th of 2023. It's a Tuesday. I did not record yesterday. We both took the day off. Me and my wife took the day off. Had to take the day off so that we could reset our minds, so to speak. It was one of those things where, she said that she got the day off, and I was like, well, I'll take the day off too. Why not? Could have been better. It could always be better, but it was good to have a day off to where she and I could both, we were able to hash a lot of things out. We were able to talk about a lot of things going on in the house and do some things. But it was good. It was good. Today we're going to read Ezekiel 42. We are still talking about the temple, the millennial reign temple. So this is still going to be a lot of measurements, cubits, a lot of possibly not understanding how these things are put together. I'm not going to worry about pulling the diagram back up. If you want to find the diagrams, like I said, you can find it really easily. You can just look up like Ezekiel temple measurements, and it will talk about Ezekiel 40, and it will give you the diagrams of the way the temple is. I'm not going to put it up on the screen. If you want to find it for yourself. It's out there. It's not like this stuff is hidden yet. But this is going to be, this is how long this was. This is how big this was. There's probably meaning to it. And I even said, I think in the last video, what if this has something to do with the human body? Christ said that our bodies are our temples. So what if these are measurements of something inside of the human body that we don't know? What if there's something to it? What if there's some kind of a medical I don't know what the medical understanding of the body that we don't know, that doctors and whoever else, they may not know either because they've never been told to look into these things. But what if there's something there that resembles the temple that we just don't know about, and that we only have that understanding in the Bible so that we know what it is. Now, I know it may sound crazy, of course there's nothing in your body that is a cube or a rectangle or whatever it is that, could even remotely look like this. How are you talking about altars and pillars and, all these other things? Well, I had said before, what if there is something there? What if we only think of a building in terms of what we see outside? What if there's something inside of our body that's completely different? And a cubit isn't just, from your elbow to your fingertips. What if it's something else? And what if this whole, palm trees and cherub things, what if there's something inside of your body that's shaped like a palm tree that we don't know about? It could be. I don't know. I'm again. That's the biggest, craziest speculation I could probably come up with. But what if there's something to it that we just don't know? So, keeping that in mind, I'm going forward with this with that understanding that maybe we are talking about something else. I mean, yes, I've said before the Bible can be taken literally, it can be taken figuratively, and it can be taken spiritually. So, what if there's something else to it? What if there's some kind of description going on there that we just don't know? You also have to remember that this is a dream, too. This is a vision that Ezekiel was given. Dreams in the Bibles are usually not completely literal. So maybe we are talking about something else. I don't know. I don't want to lead anybody, too far off the mark of, well, hey, this could be something crazy, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to say, what if there's something else to it that we are just getting that understanding of, something that no one else has talked about for centuries? Could be. I don't know. I find it interesting, though, that it does talk about coming out of a north door and leaving out of a south, or north gate, leaving out of a south gate, and you're only supposed to come in through certain ways, and there's certain holes on the sides of this building that are supposedly for guard posts or whatever, and it's a very specific size, and it's very specific here and there, and there's the tables that are set up that are very specific. And I've said before that all of these things just seem like they're small. I mean, this whole building seems like it's small. Like the whole thing only came up to about, what did I say, about 7.5 feet tall. The doors only came up to a certain height. And I find that to be kind of ridiculous, because human beings aren't okay, let me try this again. Human beings aren't growing. Human beings are shrinking. Everything was way bigger than it was a long time ago. The lie that evolution is creating taller humans, that's just not true. I mean, they're putting stuff in the water now. They're putting stuff in the food now that, yes, it's making us grow bigger, but we were bigger back then. There's enough proof out there. Even the mainstream science says that things were bigger. We've shrunk down to a point. Now we're getting bigger again because there's stuff in the food. We have to get back to a bigger point because of the whole days of Noah thing, because everything was bigger. We're talking about giants. I got a 10-month-old grandson who is huge. He's monstrous. I've said it a couple different times. We need to test that boy for gigantism. They said they can't do it until he's after a year old, but I'm like, he's a big boy. He is almost as tall. I mean, he is more than half the size of our 4-year-old granddaughter. Now, granted, she's a little small for her age, but I mean, they're both, they both weigh the same. He's a big, chunky boy. So, I don't know. What was it the other day I was out, we went to that plant show. One of these downtown, I hated it. The people there were just, ugh. Anyways, it was one of these downtown plant show things that my wife wanted to go to, and it was garbage. Everything was overpriced, and there was nothing good. But I looked around and noticed, I said, everybody is tall. Everybody is getting taller. They are putting something in the water. They are putting something in the food. Something's going on here. I'm 5'10", 6 feet when I'm wearing boots, so I've always been fairly tall for my build, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I mean, I'm looking at girls that are looking me in the eye, and I'm like, this never happened before. What is this? We're getting back to a point. Christ said it would be like the days of Noah at the end of, at the end. So keep that in mind. I don't know what all that stuff really had to do with. really has to do with Ezekiel 42. I don't know. It's like you get on these tangents, you just never know. That's what drives people away. I've said that before, and people have said that too. Why do you always babble so much? Why don't you just get into reading? Well, if I got something to say, I'm going to say. You know. I mean, we can talk about current events too if you want. I don't really want to. I mean, I can't tell for certain if all of these supposed military movements that have been happening across the country over the weekend were really a drill or not. Because all of the videos and all of the images, all the pictures and stuff that I saw, again, they didn't have their guns out. Some people say they did. I didn't see guns. You remember, one of the things that I had said before is that we heard it from several different military guys. This is an old video I did probably 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember what it was. But he said, don't worry about troop movements. Don't worry about vehicle movements. You may see them run right through the middle of downtown, but don't worry about it until you see them loaded up with guns. When they actually have the guns out on the tanks, when they actually have the guns out on the vehicles, when they have the guns out on the helicopters, whatever it is, when you see these boys strapped, that's when you need to worry. I didn't see that. I saw a lot of tanks rolling down through the streets. I saw a lot of whatever it is. And yes, you should be worried about drills, because every time that they do a drill, isn't it amazing, some kind of a false flag operation pops up in the middle of nowhere. But it didn't look to me like it was, they were strapped and ready to go. It didn't look like anything. So I don't know. I don't know. It looked... there was some other people that were saying that it didn't look like it was in America. Somebody was talking about the street signs were, look, they're not even in English. And yet, if you zoom out on the picture the guy was talking about, there was a one-way sign right there. I was like, well, that's pretty English to me. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, the sign that's in the background, it didn't look like English, so it was very weird. And there was a couple of them that, I'm going to tell you this much right now, they looked photoshopped. I don't know. There was a definite edge between where the tanks were going down the streets and where the sidewalk was. And the angles just looked off. And that stuff can be faked in videos too. So I don't know. And you have to also understand that AI videos, what they have is advanced 10 years at least further than what we have. So who knows? Who knows? Anyways, enough about that. Let's read Ezekiel 42. I know, everybody that came here trying to hear anything of Ezekiel has already left, and that's all right. For the rest of you that's decided to stick out, maybe 8 of you? Let's read Ezekiel 42. Then he brought me forth into the utter court, the way toward the north, and he brought me into the chamber that was over against the separate place, and which was before the building toward the north. Before the length of 100 cubits was the north door, and the breadth was 50 cubits. Over against the 20 cubits which were for the inner court, and over against the pavement which was for the utter court, was gallery against gallery in 3 stories. And before the chambers was a walk of 10 cubits breadth inward, a way of 1 cubit, and their doors toward the north. Now the upper chambers were shorter, for the galleries were higher than these, than the lower. And then the middle post, and then the middlemost of the building. For they were in 3 stories, but had not pillars, as the pillar of the courts, Therefore the building was straightened more than lowest and the middlemost from the ground. And the wall that was without over against the chambers, toward the utter court, on the four parts of the chambers, the length thereof was 50 cubits. And the length of the chambers that were in the utter court was 50 cubits. And lo, before the temple were 100 cubits. And from under these chambers was the entry on the east side, as one goeth into them from the utter court. The chambers were in the thickness of the wall of the court toward the east, over against the separate place, and over against the building. And the way before them was like the appearance of the chambers, which were toward the north, as long as they, and as broad as they, and all their goings out were both according to their fashions, and according to their doors. And according to the doors of the chambers that were toward the south was a door in the head of the way, even the way directly before the wall toward the east, as one entereth into them. Alright, there's a pilcrow at 13. I'm going to take a drink of water because my mouth is getting all crazy. Give me 1 second here. Okay, that was a little confusing. Just the way that it's worded, that oldie Englishy goodness that we can expect from King James. Now, I said that this building was like 7 feet tall. Now, this is a 3-story building. We've talked about this before. This thing had 3 stories to it. But I think one of my dogs just slipped on the hardwood floor. I don't know what that was. I don't hear anything now. Anyways, this is a 3-story building. And I said before that, this building was only 7 feet tall. Well, the descriptions of the heights of the doors, the heights of the doorposts, of the, whatever it is, were small. It was talking about the tops of certain buildings were only X amount tall. That's what I meant. Yes, the main temple itself was 3 stories tall. It was pretty big. I'm not going to lie about that. But everything else, the measurements that it was talking about, it was only saying it was like 5 cubits tall, which is 7.5 feet, I think. Yes, I think it's what it was. Whatever it was. Anyways, so when I say that, like I said, just know that the measurements they're talking about just seem small. Especially when I was talking about the sacrifice tables, which were only like 1.5 feet off the ground, and they were only like 2 feet cubes. It just seemed really, really small to me. I don't know. I'm not going to say that it was or it wasn't. I don't have my cubit measurement out here, and I don't know, again, if a cubit, a modern cubit, what they say is a modern cubit of 18 inches, is what they were using back in the day. We don't even know which way is north. Just because they say a direction is north does not mean that's the north that it was 1,000 years ago. So always keep that in mind. Now, it could all be exactly the way they tell us. Hey, whatever. It could exactly be the way that they tell us. I don't know. I really don't know. Anyways. So back up to the top. Then he brought me forth into the utter court, which is the outer court. We looked that word up on Friday. The way toward the north. And he brought me into the chamber that was over against the separate place, and which was before the building toward the north. Now again, I should pull up I'm not going to pull up the diagrams. Go find it for yourself. Go find it for yourself. I cannot do everything for you. Verse 2, before the length of 100 cubits was the north door, and the breadth was 50 cubits. Over against the 20 cubits, which were for the inner court, and over against the pavement, which was for the utter court. was gallery against gallery in 3 stories. So you're getting this picture of this building that, 100 cubits is still a good 100 feet, probably 100 and maybe 120 feet, probably more than that. So we're looking, probably more than that. It'd be 150, wouldn't it? Because it's half a foot for each first floor. It's 100, so 150 feet. That's still pretty long, still pretty big. The court is big. It just, like I said, the measurements of the doorways, the measurements of the whatever, just seem small to me. I don't know. So this is a pretty big building. There's a pretty big area. Let's put it that way. So verse 4, and before the chambers was a walk of 10 cubits breadth inward, a way of 1 cubit, and their doors toward the north. Before the chambers was a walk of 10 cubits breadth inward. So it was a walk of 10 cubits, so it's, about 15 feet. A way of 1 cubit. What is a way of 1 cubit? That's only 18 inches. A way of 1 cubit. Let's look this up. This is 10 cubits breadth, a way of 1 cubit. A way? What does way mean? A distance. A distance of 1 cubit? And this is the same cubit that we've been using, 18 inches. And before the chambers was a walk of 10 cubits. Let's make sure this walk, journey, walk, okay, of 10 cubits breadth inward, expanse width inward, a way of 1 cubit. So there was a space that was 18 inches long and 10 inches wide. Of course, in the 18 inches, there used to be a joke that Jim Ross, he was a commentator for wrestling for WWF, WWE, and he used to talk about putting an asshole every 18 inches because that was the measurement of a chair that they used to sit on. Whenever they used to set the chairs up on the floor of the stadiums, they'd put the chairs together and it was 18 inches between every asshole. So I find that interesting, though, that it's exactly 18 inches. Of course, anymore people have gotten so much bigger that 18 inches just seems so tiny at this point. I know I'm a big man. I could not fit 18 inches in between 2 people. That would be... We went to... we were seated in the balcony of one of the old theaters in Chicago. We went to see... it was music for Final Fantasy. About 4 or 5 years ago. And they were using the old school chairs. I mean, this place was old. And they had me scrunched in those little tiny seats. Ugh. I was next to a girl. She was a pretty big girl too, and we were both in there, and it was so uncomfortable. I'm losing a lot of weight now, though. I'm getting better. I am getting better. I found out I lost another like 7 pounds just because we're not eating. Nobody in the house is eating. Everybody in the house is losing weight because nobody's eating because we're all stressing each other out so much. This is a true story. We're killing each other. Absolutely killing each other because I'm just not eating. I'm not eating. My stepdaughter's not eating. She said she lost like 4 pounds. I said, psh, I lost 7. Don't even. She was like, I lost 4 pounds in like a day. I said, man, 4 pounds is like a poop. It's like it's a pretty decent movement. 4 pounds isn't a lot, really. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. 18 inches, a cubit. So this thing was a way of 1 cubit. And their doors towards the north. All right, verse 5. Let's keep going. I'm in a mood today, man. These measurement things are just I don't know. It's crazy stuff. Verse 5. Now the upper chambers were shorter, for the galleries were higher than these, than the lower, and then the middlemost of the building. For they were in 3 stories, but had not pillars as the pillars of the courts. Therefore the building was straitened more than the lowest and the middlemost from the ground. Well, it would have to be, because if it's 3 stories, I think this thing was a pyramid. Not a standard what we would think of a pyramid, but it was shaped kind of like a pyramid. You have smaller buildings on the top because they don't have like modern steel technology that we do now that's able to make just big square, nasty buildings. There's a lot of talk now about because I follow a lot of Tartaria and ancient history stuff, and they show all those old buildings from 1800s, that beautiful, ornate, amazing buildings that we just don't do anymore. We just make big square concrete slabs of garbage, big rectangular concrete slabs of garbage with windows, which are ugly, terrible. But back then they put time and effort into these things. Big, beautiful, ornate designs, just amazing stuff. It must have been tremendously uplifting to walk through the streets back then to see these things. A lot of people will tell you, oh no, it was probably garbage because they used to have, wastewater flowing down the streets and all this other kind of crap, and there was horse poop all over the place. I said, yeah, but you're not shoved in this big concrete prison. These big, beautiful, ornate buildings that people put time and effort into, that there must have been something to it for them to go through all of that just to make those. Not only that, but if you read the history of these places, they made these things quick. What is the one? There was one guy that I remember was talking about. They, settled in certain cities in like Australia or whatever it is, and within 2 years, they had these big, 10-story ornate monstrosities that just popped up out of nowhere, and there was 20 or 30 of them all at once. These big buildings within 2 or 3 years. How does that happen? They made them quick too. You're being lied to. I've said this before. You're being lied to. Anyways. Verse 7. And the wall that was without over against the chambers, toward the utter courts, on the forepart of the chambers, the length thereof was 50 cubits. That's a wall that was 50 cubits. For the length of the chambers that were in the utter court was 50 cubits. And lo, before the temple were 100 cubits. And from under these chambers was the entry on the east side, as one goeth into them from the utter court. The chambers were in the thickness of the wall of the court toward the east, over against the separate place, and over against the building. Now, one of the things that it was saying that the walls of the temple itself were, 7 cubits? It was thick. It was probably to be able to hold up a 3-story building. So the walls of this place were huge. But there were chambers inside of them too. I think it said it was 3 cubit by 3 cubit chambers that they had inside of them as well, so that they could, the guard post chambers. I don't guards stood in them. But then again, it's like I said, it makes you think that maybe there's chambers and valves, and maybe we're talking about the human heart. Maybe we're talking about something going on inside of your body. I don't know. Just speculation. That's all I got. Verse 11, and the way before them was like the appearance of the chambers, which were toward the north, as long as they, and as broad as they, and all their goings out were both according to their fashions and according to their doors. And according to the doors of the chambers that were toward the south was a door in the head of the way, even the way directly before the wall toward the east, as one entereth into them. If you can make any sense of that, feel free. Like I said, this stuff, it's not only is it Old English stuff, but it is measurements. I'm sure that if I actually sat down and, tried to really understand it, make, little drawings and measurements. Of course, if it were me, I could make something that resembled something that's completely different than what we see in the diagrams on the internet. Because they had very, specific diagrams of this building inside of this wall with all these little chambers on it. And, if I tried to do it by listening to this to try to figure out what this was, I may come up with something completely different. I'd honestly love to hear somebody come up with something completely different or see something completely different, because you just never know. We are so tuned to think that everything is a very specific way. But what if this is trying to tell us of something that's completely off the charts that we can't even process? I don't know. I really don't know. Verse 13. And this goes until... there's one at 19. Okay, I was going to say it goes till the end, but there's one at 19. Alright, so verse 13. Then he said unto me, the north chambers and the south chambers, which are before the separate place, they be holy chambers, where the priests that approach unto the Lord shall eat the most holy things. There shall they lay the most holy things, and the meat offering, and the sin offering, and the trespass offering, for the place is holy. When the priests enter therein, they shall not go out of the holy place into the utter court, but there they shall lay their garments wherein they minister, for they are holy, and shall put on other garments, and shall approach to those things which are for the people. Now when he had made an end of measuring the inner house, he brought me forth toward the gates, whose prospect is toward the east, and measured it round about. He measured the east side with the measuring reed, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed round about. He measured the north side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed round about. He measured the south side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed. Alright, back to 13. Then said he unto me, the north chambers and the south chambers, which are before the separate place, they be holy chambers, where the priests that approach unto the Lord shall eat the most holy things. They shall eat the most holy things. They used to eat sacrifices. We talked about this before. There shall they lay the most holy things, and the meat offering, and the sin offering, and the trespass offering, for the place is holy. 14. When the priests enter therein, then shall they not go out of the holy place into the utter court, but there they shall lay their garments wherein they minister, for they are holy. They were very holy garments. Not only that, but somebody said before, if the priests are making sacrifices all day, they are getting blood on them. They're getting blood on their garments. They're getting blood all over everything. It has to happen somewhere along the line. What happens when you get blood on you? Part of the law says that whenever you get any kind of blood on you, you have to be separated. Well, that was what these priests were there for. They were separated. The Levites were separated. Is that who it was? Levites were separated from everybody else, because that was their portion. They were supposed to be the priests, the ministers, the ones. They were separated so that they could do all of these things. It was okay for them to be separated. It was okay for them to eat the meat sacrifices. It was okay to do that because they had to handle the blood all the time. 24/7. That was what God ordained them to do. So that's what this is. So they shall lay their garments wherein they minister, for they are holy, and shall put on other garments, and shall approach to those things which are for the people. So that means they could leave. They had to take their clothes off so that they could go out into the people. But they were always meant to be separated and set apart. There is something to the blood. Remember that I've talked about this before. We've gotten to this point now to where they are mixing and sharing blood in the world. There's stories now, more and more stories that I hear of. Millionaire says that he is going to try to live longer by trading his blood for the blood of his son, or whatever it is. I heard that just the other day. I was like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. There is something to it. God tells us to stay away from it. It's an abomination. And yet you've got, what's her face? I can't remember her name. Was it Megan Fox? Is that who it is? Going out there talking about drinking her boyfriend's blood. You got Marina Abramovich, the most evil woman in the world right now, going out there throwing blood on the walls and doing all these satanic rites. And it's even the smallest things, like sucking on a cut, we're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to touch the blood. You're not even supposed to eat rare steaks. People don't like to hear that. So I like mine rare, medium rare. I like to have a little blood in my steak. God says you're not supposed to have blood at all. You're supposed to do away with the blood. So what exactly is the reason? There's something more to it. I don't know what it is. But God goes out of his way to tell us these things. That you were meant to be separated from the blood, from all of these things that happen like that. That there was a very specific people that were only supposed to touch these things. And this is what this is. This is their chamber where they have to change out of these things so that they can actually go into the people. Why aren't they separated by 7 days? I don't know. They have a completely different rule set than everybody else. So, I don't know. There's something more to it. It's worth looking into. Verse 15, Now when he made an end of measuring the inner house, he brought me forth toward the gate, whose prospect is toward the east, and measured it round about. He measured the east side with the measuring reed, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed round about. He measured the north side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed round about. He measured the south side, 500 reeds, with the measuring reed. I do not remember. I'm just looking. This is his appearance was put the flax. In the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits. So this is 6 cubits long. So this is, what do we say? 6 cubits was about an 8. 1, 2, 3. So it'd be 9. So actually this reed was pretty long. It'd be 9.5 feet long. It's almost 10 feet long. So this, with the measuring reed, this reed being about 9 to 10 feet long, 500 reeds. Am I wrong on that? Let's go back. Let's look again. What did I say it was? Ezekiel 40 verse 5. And behold, a wall on the outside of the hand, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long by the cubit and in handbreadth. So 6 cubits long. So that's 6 feet plus 3 feet because of the 6 inches. So that's 9 feet. 9 feet total. Which is still. So we're talking about 500 reeds. That's 4,000 feet. Is that right? That's big. It's big. It's a big walled area. And yet, like I said, there's just certain aspects of it that just seem tiny. I don't know. Verse 19. He turned about to the west side and measured 500 reeds with the measuring reed. He measured it by the 4 sides. It had a wall round about, 500 reeds long and 500 broad, to make a separation between the sanctuary and the profane place. Alright, verse 19 again. He turned about to the west side and measured 500 reeds with the measuring reed, so it's one big, huge square. He measured it by the 4 sides. It had a wall round about, 500 reeds long and 500 reeds broad, to make a separation between the sanctuary and the profane place, to make a separation between the sanctuary and the rest of the world. What's the rest of the world? The profane place. Because the world has fallen. And more I see it. The world has fallen and continues to fall. Even though there's a lot of people that are fighting back right now, which is good. You know, people are actually calling out the garbage that's going on now for what it is. There's still so much more work we need to do. So much more work that people can keep pushing towards, but we can't let evil win. It does eventually. Evil does eventually triumph, but God wins the entire battle. I mean, he wins the entire war. I mean, he wins everything. But evil does eventually overcome. I've said this before. Evil will snowball consistently and constantly until it's stopped. Right now, we are winning some major battles. And I know I've said it before and other people said it before that, you know, God says that everything will fall apart. That doesn't mean that it has to happen on our watch. That doesn't mean that we can just sit around and let people fall by the wayside. Let children fall by the wayside. Let this evil darkness consume everything. That doesn't mean we have to sit here and do this. We have to fight till the very end. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and stop. Get myself ready for work. I'm extremely tired. I am in pain. My side still hurts. I prayed to the Father for healing today because I have had, I think Saturday was the worst. Saturday I woke up, it was just pure, Saturday I woke up, it was pure misery. Just my whole back and my side. It's not like it's an organ or anything. I pulled a muscle. Somewhere along the line, I pulled a muscle. I know I've been talking about it, and I keep pulling it because I'm constantly moving around. I'm constantly picking up the grandkids. I got a 4-year-old granddaughter that just wants to climb on me every single day. I'm sitting in this extremely uncomfortable chair. Whatever it is that I do around the house, I am constantly straining it again, and I need to take a day where I can just rest. Put the heating pad on it, but I can't. We're always doing something. There's always something going on. So I had to ask for healing because it's just really bothered me. Anyways, that's enough about me. How you guys doing? that's it's gotten to a point where I am noticing that I am just complaining too much. I am sitting back and just like, oh, woe. It's not so much woe is me. It's just, there's just another thing that I got to worry about doing. There's another thing going on here I got to worry about. There's another thing going on there I got to worry about. There's this and this and that's that. And that's all the stuff. And I'm just like, dude, stop. Get over yourself. Move on. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get myself better and move forward. So anyways, I shall talk to y'all later. I'm gonna go ahead and get off here, get ready for work. I love all of you. Take care of yourselves. God bless. I was thinking I had something more profound to say there, but I really don't. So I shall talk to you all later. Take care of yourselves.